welcome. I am Sam Horn, and I am so glad that you are joining us for this Tongue Fu for the Holidays special session. You know, Katharine Graham of the Washington Post was asked what it was like running a newspaper, and she thought about it for a moment. She said, "To do what you love and feel that it matters, how could anything be more fun?" Well, that's how I feel. I love this topic. I love the holidays, and I love having an opportunity to share some of these insights and stories with you. So I hope you've got paper and pen in front of you. Our goal is to actually share some tips that you can use to make the holidays more of what you want them to be rather than what you're afraid they might be. And so hopefully if you take these notes, if you ink it when you think it, you can refer to these ideas in the days and the weeks ahead. All right, quick preview of the session. It's that I'm partial. I really do think that it is our responsibility to step up and take the lead. Is that I think everyone is waiting for someone else to make the first move. And if everyone keeps waiting for someone else to take charge of the holiday experience, then sometimes the holidays go by and they're not what we wanted. And so we're not going to wait. We're going to initiate. Now, a couple of quick comments about this, because there may be some eye rollers in your group. There may be some people who think that, you know, having a gratitude conversation is cheesy or something like that. So here are a couple of stories that may center you in that taking responsibility for doing this really is a gift. Not everyone will appreciate it. There may be one person who it is the right words at the right time, and it's what they really needed. And we're going to think of that one person instead of the eye roller crowd. So when I say Tom and Andrew, it's when my sons were growing up, we had a nightly ritual, is that I would read them a story or tell them a story. We would have our back rub, and this wasn't just any back rub. This was chop suey, and this was slap happy, and this was finger rain, and this was electricity and bumper cars, and then we would do our gratefuls. Now, in the beginning, they were kind of glad to do this. What was something good that happened at school? What was something that they did in a sport that they were glad about? And then after a while, they kind of ran out of steam. And when I would say, "So what are you thankful today?" they would roll their eyes and begrudgingly do it. And when we would have our holiday meals and we would go around the table and we would talk about highlights of the year and what we were grateful for and who made a difference for us and something that we learned that we're proud of. And when we look back at this year, something we'll always remember fondly. Once again, sometimes they were into it and sometimes they just thought mom was being mom and they kind of begrudgingly went along with it. Well, how could I have predicted that both my sons are fathers now and they do these rituals with their kids? How could I have predicted that Andrew would actually start a business called Tribute that is all about giving gratitude, expressing our thanks, and letting people know how we appreciate them and what they've done that's made a difference for us? And so when we think about people who might not be getting on board on this, let's remember Albert Schweitzer said, "In influencing others, example is not the main thing. It's the only thing." We're setting an example that the holidays roll around once a year, and that we can talk about whether the stuffing is dry and whether we left the turkey in too long, and we can talk about the traffic, or we can talk about COVID, or we can talk about all of the political dissent and divisiveness. We can talk about that. Is that really the best use of our time and our mind and our attention? If we're gathered together with loved ones, whether it's virtually or whether it's in person, isn't this an opportunity to make this time together precious, meaningful, to talk about things that matter, to establish rituals that we look forward to so that when we look back at it, it's time well spent? You know, Annie Dillard said, "How we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our life. Well, let's spend these days around the holidays in a way that we'll be glad we did. Now, I mentioned Deanie's Epiphany, and so I'm going to shortcut this story so that we can jump right into our tips for tongue foos for the holiday. Deanie Trinidad was the personnel director for the Ilikai Hotel in Hawaii and then the Prince Hotel in Hawaii. And I will always remember that she gave me an opportunity to speak for her. And I was 8 months hapai at the time, 8 months hapai. Hapai is pregnant in Hawaiian. And she put her hand on my belly after I did a program for them. And she said, wouldn't it be something if that little boy in there grew up and came to work for me someday? Well, when Andrew was a junior at Virginia Tech, I got a phone call out of the blue from Deanie. I had not talked with her in years. And she said, do you have a son who's studying hospitality management at Virginia Tech? I said, yeah. She said, well, and that's how Andrew had an opportunity to go and work for Deanie. And now he had a chance to go with her on one of her monthly trips to a local high school. Because Deanie had grown up in a very rough part of Hawaii, she was the only person from her family to go to college, and her give back to her community was every month, and she had been doing this for years, she would go to a different high school on the island. And she would talk to them. Are you planning on going to college, community college, or four-year college? What are your career goals? What's your vision for yourself? And for many of them, it had never occurred to them to go to college. No one in their family had gone to college. It never occurred to them to think about the possibilities of their career. So she'd been doing this for years as her way of supporting kids in Hawaii. Well, the time that Andrew was with her, it was a very rough portion of Hawaii, and the kids were not paying attention. In fact, it was worse than that. They were literally flying paper airplanes in the cafeteria, the gymnasium, where they're having this event. It seemed like everyone was texting or on their phones, and some people were really rude. And when she and Andrew were walking back to the car, she was thinking that this was probably going to be the last time that she did this, that it didn't seem to be making a difference, and that it didn't seem to really be important or matter to them. And then Andrew and Deanie heard some feet running up behind them. And this 15-year-old girl tugged at Deanie's jacket, and she said, Miss Deanie, you think I got chance? And Deanie decided that she would continue speaking to these high schools because there just may be someone in there that's feeling all alone, that's feeling like she can't relate to these other kids and that there's something wrong with her. Maybe she has hopes and dreams for herself, and that Deanie just may be the life raft that she needs in her life to believe that there is something better. And that's kind of my Pollyanna vision for the holidays, is that somebody's got to go first. And if we go first, and if we believe in connection and community and people talking about what's matter, then we go first. And once again, not everyone is going to jump on this bandwagon. However, they may be one person, and this has been a kind of bleak year from them, or one person and they're kind of losing hope, one person and they're kind of getting discouraged. And this uplifting, rising tide, raising all involved gathering, once again, whether it's for an hour online or whether it's for a day in person, it may be just the life raft they need to have hope again, to feel encouraged again, to put their dreams back in place again, and to know that we can be the quality of person we want to be, even when other people aren't. All right, and if that sounds good to you, then how can we set up a legacy, whether it's with one person, whether it's our close family, whether it's with our friends, whether it's coworkers at work, how can we set up a legacy where we make the holidays more of what we want them to be? So here's one way to do that. Now, normally we kind of fill in a word to lose and we fill in a word to use. What I'm going to do this time is, because we have lots of other things to discuss, we're going to fill in all the words to lose. Now, if you're wondering, Sam, what is this about the words to lose and words to use? Well, what I've learned in 25 years of teaching Tongue Fu to people around the world through hundreds of organizations is that words matter, every single one of them. And often we are using words that actually create resentment. They create resistance. We're using words that create conflict. And if we replace those words with words on the right, we can actually turn conflict into cooperation. We can actually prevent resistance and resentment and turn it into receptivity and to rapport, even respect. So let's go through this list on the left, and then we'll think about some holiday conversations that we might have, and maybe we can make them more cooperative. Maybe we can actually avoid some conflicts, especially if there's some people who have different political beliefs or conspiracy theories, or they've had a dark time and they actually are very vocal about sharing all the things they're depressed about, and we want to support them, and we don't want the other 10 people on the call to sit in silence and be held hostage while one person goes on and on and on and on. So in fact, Judy Tenuta has a line about that. She says, I think we need a 12-step group for nonstop talkers. We're going to call it on and on and on. So if you have someone who in your gatherings goes on and on and on, and everyone else is thinking, how can I get out of here? We even have a tip for that. Let's fill in the words on the left. Let's put down that word but. Okay, well, I hear what you're saying, but. Well, I know it's important to you, but. Well, we were looking forward to this, but. It's like, well, I'd like to help you with that, but. That word, that little 3-letter word, but, does more damage than any other word in the English language. So let's put down the word but. Now underneath it, let's put down the word should. Well, you should have let me know that you didn't like cranberries. Well, you should have, left your dog at home. It's, well, you should have told me that you haven't had a COVID test. That word should has little or no constructive value, because it usually pertains to the past. And when we tell people what they should have done or what they shouldn't have done, they will resent us, even if what we're saying is right, because they can't undo it. We're coming across as a critic and they're feeling shame. So please put that word should over there on the left. We're going to try and get that out of our holiday communications. And next is, you'll need to, or you have to. Well, you'll need to wait. The turkey isn't ready yet. Can we eat now? No, you have to wait. We still have to set the table. It's like, well, you need to understand we're doing the best we can. Well, you need to wear mask. It's like, could you please, we'll get to how to say that more courteously instead of giving people commands. Do you know anyone who likes to be ordered around? And when we tell them you need to, you have to, inside they're thinking, you're not the boss of me. So let's get rid of that. You need to, you have to. And on the next line, let's get rid of can't because, and there's nothing. Hey, no, we can't do that because. It's like, no, you can't play outside because it's raining. No, you can't have leftovers because, we haven't even cleared the table yet. It's like those words can't because are like a verbal door slamming in someone's face. They will resent us because they feel like we're blocking them from what it is they want. Even the word there's nothing. Hey, don't blame me. There's nothing I can do about it. There's no way I can change it. It's not my fault. All of these words can't because, there's nothing, there's no way, once again, cause people to feel like we don't care, that we're not listening, and that we're just shrugging our shoulders and dismissing them. They'll often get louder and angrier in an effort to make us care. And then finally, please put down on the last word on the left, problem and wrong. It's like there was someone in my son's school who used to say, what's wrong? That's how she get it. And someone would say, can I talk to you? And she'd say, sure, what's the problem? She would wrap up conversations by saying, any other problems we need to talk about? If someone says, can I go ahead and start decorating the Christmas tree? Or can I go ahead and start opening presents? Well, I kind of have a problem with that. Well, I have a problem with the way that word problem, that's a fighting phrase. Because the word problem means something's wrong. And as we're going to talk about in a moment, a lot of times we use the word problem or what's wrong habitually, and we make things wrong even when they're not. Okay, so what can we replace them with? Opposite of but, please put the word and. I hear what you're saying, and we tried that before, and it didn't work out very well. And do you have some ideas on how we can handle that differently? I know this is important to you, and can you give me 10 minutes to finish up here in the kitchen, and then we can go ahead and talk about it. Do you see how the word and lets what comes before it and after it both are true? It does not cancel out what the other person said. You really did a good job on that, but I'm sorry that happened, but do you see how that word but creates the conflict because it cancels out what went before it and emphasizes what come after it? If I say, I hear what you're saying, and one thing we need to keep in mind, you did a good job on that, and could you please, do you see how both things are true or both people feel heard? It advances the conversation instead of anchoring it in an argument. So and instead of but. All right, what if something goes wrong? What if the kids are playing and knock into the Christmas tree and knock off the armor? You should have been more careful. Well, it's true. Can they do anything about it? Nope. Over on the right, next time, from now on, in the future. Because when people do something wrong, you should have been more careful. You should have left your dog at home. It's like, once again, they will resent us from now on. In the future, next time, now we're being a coach instead of a critic. We are shaping behavior instead of shaming it. People are learning from their mistakes instead of losing face over their mistakes. Something's going to go wrong over the holidays. We have a choice. We can should all over them, or we can shape their behavior with a suggestion. What's it going to be? All right. How about instead of orders? Well, you need to put this out on the table. Could you please put this out on the table? Well, you need to wait. It's not your turn yet. Could you please wait so so-and-so can finish? Our goal is to turn commands into courteous requests. Could you please, if you would, because now we are treating people with the respect they want, need, and deserve, and they're a lot more likely to do things willingly because they want to, instead of reluctantly because they're being told to. All right, all those words can't because there's nothing. Over on the right, put can as soon as. Instead of saying, no, you can't play outside because it's raining, yes, you can play outside as soon as it stops raining. Instead of, no, we can't have leftovers, we're still cleaning the pots and pans, yes, we can have leftovers as soon as we finish cleaning the pots and pans. And by the way, we might want to add, and if you want to speed up those leftovers, you're welcome to pitch in and help us out in the kitchen. And the goal is to turn can't because into can as soon as, or yes, you can right after. And now if we're talking about the events of 2020 and like, well, there's nothing we can do about it. Say, there's something we can do about it. We may not be able to meet in person like we have every year for the past decade. We can still meet virtually. We can still have an hour Zoom call where at least we have a chance to get caught up instead of just passing by our annual tradition. Turn there's nothing into there's something. Turn not my fault, no way I can change it into I wish I could change it. I wish we could get together in person because I miss you too. I wish that we could. Do you see how we may not be able to change circumstances? We can change the way we communicate about them. And when we change the way we communicate about the circumstances, at least people know we care. Instead of not my fault, nothing I can do, no way I can change it, which actually creates this gap, this gulf between people because it's lacking in empathy or compassion. And then finally, those words problem or wrong. Let's get rid of them. Let's use words that don't give the impression something's wrong. So even if like someone's crying, instead of walking up and saying what's wrong, which cements their sorrow and their grief and their depression and sadness, say, want to talk about it? How can I help? What's going on? Open up the conversation instead of nailing it as something's wrong. It's, or what's the problem? Or I have a problem with that. Can we talk about that? And to use words that imprint and perpetuate the positive behavior instead of the negative. You may see a trend here, and then it's time to move on. All of these words on the left set up a ripple effect. And athletes know this. If I say don't drop the ball, what am I going to do? I'm going to drop the ball. If I tell people you better not be late, what's going to happen? If I say I don't want to forget this, what's going to happen? Negative words get negative consequences. Negative words set up negative behavior. Over on the right, instead of don't forget, please remember. Don't forget to bring nope, please remember. Instead of you better not be late, please be early. Let's plant and imprint and perpetuate what we do want with these words on the right instead of what we don't want with the words on the left. All right, let's go on to the next. And let's talk about ground rules. When I wrote my bully book, I will always remember doing a public workshop, and a woman talked about she had 3 sons and 1 daughter, and the daughter had married a bully. And he was very possessive, and he loved to stir things up. And so when he would come to a holiday meal, he would deliberately say something to rile everyone up because it was a little power play for him. It was about control, and he just loved to see how he could get people all upset. This was around 9/11. And they had a holiday meal where following that, he said, those firemen aren't heroes. They were just doing their jobs. I don't know why everyone's making Now, he deliberately said that because he knew that people would react. And inside, that's what a bully loves. They love to say things, outrageous things, to see everyone run around with their chickens, like chickens with their head cut off. And meanwhile, they're thinking proudly, I did that. Which is why I believe it is so important to have ground rules. Is what I told this matriarch of the family was to get in touch with this individual and to let him to say, mea culpa. Mea culpa is my fault. In the past, we've not had ground rules around our holiday gatherings. That was my bad. And from now on, we will have ground rules around our family gatherings so everyone can feel safe. Now, what is this about ground rules? Well, think about it. There are rules in sports. You can't hit below the belt. You can't hit after the whistle blows. There are rules of the road. You can't go out on a highway without there being stop signs and crosswalks. If you come up to an intersection and there's 8 people there, all those 8 people know they all have to stop. They all have to see who's on the right. They have to give right of way to the person who's supposed to get next. They have to wait their turn. Think about it. For many holiday gatherings, there are no rules. Someone can be like that bully and ruin it for everyone, and no one holds that person accountable, which is why I believe that whether it's a Zoom call that you have with friends or family, or whether it's in-person meeting, that if you're the host, you initiate this. If you're not the host, you suggest this to the host, that we get in touch and we say, we want this to be a safe holiday. We want people to feel that they're not going to be attacked for their religious beliefs or political beliefs. We want people to feel safe that this is not going to turn into a shouting match where 2 people are getting into it and everyone else is just wishing that they weren't there. So here are our ground rules. We're going to agree. This is a Zoom call. Maybe you agree that as you go around and you get an update of the year, a review of the year, and then a preview of next year, that you may agree that politics is off limits. You may agree that conversation about COVID is off limits. You decide a timeline for each person. You decide that there is no interrupting that person. So even if someone says something you don't agree with, it is not okay to interrupt that person. You agree that when your time is up, and it's time for the next person instead of someone going on and on. So let me follow the slide here and what it says. First is to identify what I call quicksand arguments. Now, I grew up in a very small town in Southern California. It actually had more tumbleweeds than people. And when my sister and brother and I, when we would go out riding our horses, we knew to steer clear of these dry riverbeds because these riverbeds have quicksand in them. And quicksand is this like sandy water mush that does not support weight. And if you get in quicksand, it's easy to get into and it is really hard to get out of. In fact, the more you struggle, the more you sink into it. Well, I was on a call a few months ago with a friend who I've known for 30 years. We have had monthly calls for more than 10 years. And we started talking about the election. She started saying some things that flew in the face of everything I believed. I was in shock. I could not believe that someone I thought I knew pretty well, someone I've always admired, someone I've always respected, someone who is an icon in our industry, that this person was saying things that were the exact opposite of what I believed. And at the end of the phone call, when I hung up, I wasn't even sure if I ever wanted to talk to her again. She was probably thinking the same thing of me. She probably discovered that I had opposite beliefs of what she thought was true and real, and she didn't want to talk with me. So I thought about quicksand, and I thought about, did my brother and sister and I, did our friends, did we stop riding horses because we knew there was dangerous quicksand there? No, we stayed away from the quicksand. We kept riding. We just thought that is dangerous. Stay away from it. And my friend and I decided that politics for us was a dangerous conversation. It could ruin a 30-year friendship. It could end a relationship where I admired and respected many things about this person, didn't agree with him on this one thing, and we just elected that, so we were not going to talk about that, because a quicksand argument is, am I going to change their mind? Nope. Are they going to change my mind? Nope. If in the hour you've got together on this Zoom call, or the half day that you have together in person, if you have a volatile issue and you realize that everyone is very clear that their particular approach is what they want to continue to believe, they're not interested in delving into it, diving into it, finding out why they think this way. Maybe there's something there, not during this hour call. That's not going to happen. That's a quicksand conversation. We're just going to say we're steering clear of that because we want to honor our 30-year friendship. There's a lot that I admire and respect about you. I disagree with you on this one. It's kind of what Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg said when she was asked how she could go to the opera with Justice Scalia when they had such opposite beliefs. Do you know what she said? We are different. We are one. So you may agree for the holidays when you gather that you've got different beliefs and you are one family, you are one group of friends, and you will honor what you have in common instead of what you have in conflict. Now, here are some other rules about think before we speak. And you've probably seen this before. It's think, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? So now, I do not believe that these are draconian rules. We're not talking about for the rest of our life, every single time we gather, we're going to avoid quicksand conversations. No, I'm talking about for this meal, for the holiday, for this gathering, for this hour on Zoom, these are our criteria. If we can only say a few things, let us choose to say things that elevate and celebrate each other, that elevate and celebrate our life and our community and what's right with the world, instead of dwelling on what's wrong. And by the way, on your Zoom calls, it's really important to limit time, because say that you're going to have an hour Zoom call. Say you have 8 people on the phone. Say you want 2 rounds, maybe a review, preview, a review looking back over 2020, what story are we telling, and a preview looking ahead to 2021, and what story are we telling. Because Tara Conklin said, our greatest work of art is the story we tell about ourselves. What story are we telling about 2020? Are we letting events hijack this story? So some people are saying this is the worst year of my life. Well, are there other things that happened? Maybe we had tragedies. Maybe we lost a loved one. Maybe we lost a business. Maybe we lost a job. And that is all true. And that is all awful. It's the only thing that happened this year. Could we maybe change the story and acknowledge some of the other things that happened instead of just what went wrong? So put a time limit on the Zoom call, whether it's 2 minutes each, and then appoint a timekeeper. So if you're the host of the conversation, you're not also the one watching the time, interrupting people, and let people know in advance. You'll each have 2 minutes. And our timekeeper will give you a 15-second head up when you want to wrap it up. And when it's 2 minutes and the first person starts going over, you as the host take charge and say, Bob, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to your preview. And Barbara, you're next. So what was your review for 2020? All right, and create an annual tradition. I am proud. I hope that I can see her face in a moment. I actually have Sandy Reed, who is a relative of my extended family. When I talk about growing up at our granny's house, this is Ethelbert and George Reed, and my cousin was Dan Reed, and Sandy is Dan's wife. And Dan has left us now, although what do we have that endures when someone has left us? We have rituals, we have traditions, we have things that we do every year that define us. And in the Reed family, they always used to have olives, and people would eat the olive and then flick the pit into the centerpiece. And it always got a laugh, and it was something that we always did. And when we think back at those meals, we think about the things that we always did. What are your holiday traditions? What do you do every year that people count on, that are meaningful to them, that define you as a family or a group? It's my friend, Dr. Diane Gerard, who's a psychologist on the island of Kauai. When Hurricane Iniki came through and devastated that island, many people did not have their homes and they did not have their places of business. And the county of Kauai asked her as a psychologist for her advice. And her first piece of advice was to establish rituals. Because when the world is turned upside down and inside out, and you can't count on anything, we need something we can count on. So if you don't have traditions, what tradition are you going to create this year? Every year when we get together, we're going to do this because it is something to count on in a world where we can't count on a lot. All right, and now honor the majority, not the one who's out of line. Let's go back to the story that started this. The woman who is the matriarch of the family, who had the daughter who was worried about, the daughter who was married to the bully, who ruined every gathering. When the matriarch said to me, if I essentially tell him that if he misbehaves, if he does these things that he's done in the past, he's going to be asked to leave, I live in fear. Why we have put up with it so long is that we are afraid that if we speak up to him, that he and their sister, the daughter, will leave and we'll never see her again. And I said, do you understand how this is bullies work? They keep people in fear. They keep people not speaking up because they are afraid of the consequences. And yet the consequences, everyone is being penalized. And I said, so reach out to your daughter, let her know what you're going to do. And if the bully acts up at dinner, look at the daughter and say, Wilma, you are welcome to stay. Carl, you knew the rules, you agreed to the rules, leave. And yes, I do believe in enforcing the rules because we want to honor everyone and not the one who is ruining it for the rest. All right, let's move on. And I'm going to stop for just a second. I've been talking. We have a couple of other slides about some questions that actually can lead to fascinating, enlightening, eye-opening, meaningful conversations. And we have kind of a treat, a little exercise we can do about setting up 2021 so that it's more of what we want it to be. And Mark Twain said, that no one was ever saved after the first 20 minutes of the sermon. And I've been talking for more than 20 minutes at a time. Time for me to put a sock in it, see if you might have some questions, comments, or even more importantly, your best practices. What are you doing to take the lead and to make these holidays something that you will always remember for all the right reasons? So anyone want to unmute themselves and share best practice? Okay, please. I see Deborah, saw your hand up. Please go ahead.
I've got some different questions that I'm going to be introducing to the conversation at Christmas this time. One is, what book or books have you given most for a gift and why?
Yes.
Or what are 1 to 3 books that have greatly influenced your life? I have a lot of readers in our group, so I think that'll be a great question. And another one is, what purchase of $100 or less has most positively impacted your life in the last 6 months or in recent memory?
What fantastic questions, Deborah. And you know what? Recommend, even get little notebooks. You know, you can get little notebooks at a store for like $2 or something like that, and have notebooks and pens by everyone's dish. Or if it's Zoom, tell them to get a notebook in advance and whatever, and then remind them, ink it when you think it. So when someone recommends a book that has been just exactly what they needed to read this year, they can write it down. And then you know what? Otter.ai, OTTER.ai, the conversation, and then afterwards send a collection of these, because then the event is not just a one-off. It's not like, that was great, bye-bye, see you next year. It is the gracious way of getting back in touch. What a joy it was gathering together. Thank you for your suggestions. We decided not to wait till Thanksgiving. We're going to get together for Easter so we can do this again. Here are the books that were recommended. Here is how people spent their $100. And so that we are taking responsibility once again for changing and elevating a conversation that keeps us connected moving forward. What a great idea. Thank you. Good. So someone else, and then I want to honor my times, and I see that we only have about 10 minutes left. So someone else want to share your best practice. Love to hear it. Yes, please. I think I see Dawn. Let's hear Dawn.
Hi, Sam. For a Zoom gathering, something we tried yesterday for a work event, and I could definitely see doing this with a personal event, is would you rather. So you come up with about 5 or 10 would you rather fun statements, like, would you rather be an unsung superhero or a famous villain? Wow. And we used the poll feature in Zoom. So we put it as a poll. As people coming on to the Zoom, they saw it, so they didn't have to wait for anything. There's something going on. And then we would show the results. So immediately you could see, half the audience wanted to be the villain and the other half wanted to be a hero. And then we'd have a second poll, like, would you rather, go to the moon or, stay at home, those kind of things. So it was just kind of a fun, interactive way to get people in the mood for the conversation. So that might be something fun to try.
Dawn, thank you so much. And you're a certified Tongue Fu trainer, Dawn, so it sounds like woo-hoo-hoo. So, because of Tongue Fu is that kind of what's unfolded in the last few years is that people don't know how to talk to each other. Digital natives grew up talking with their thumbs, right? It's like we don't have dinner conversations because everyone's off, late from work, off in sports and on a trip, etc. And so people have not learned how to have these conversations. And unless someone like you says, hey, let's do this, and then gives them these creative questions, these conversations where we get to know each other and enjoy each other and like each other and find out what we have in common and be inspired, they never happen, do they?
Right. Right.
Yeah. So good for you. Hey, before I move on, I think a couple people are on the call. Tweet Coleman, are you on the call? Can you unmute yourself for a second and join one of your best practices?
Sam, sorry, I was going to interrupt. Catherine had a comment as well.
Oh, and Catherine, yay. Okay, because I'm not on gallery view, so I didn't see Catherine. So we have Tweet and Catherine. And then if Sandy Reed is on the call, we'd love to hear from her. And I know that we've got like 6 minutes left. So so let's see. Tweet, are you there? Okay, so Tweet may not be there. And Catherine has a question. Catherine, let's hear from you, please.
We did this for my dad's 80th birthday party, and it would work great for Christmas. We had everybody give in or send a memory, and we used it as a poll to guess who gave that memory, and that started up other conversations. So that's just a fun thing that went really well.
You know, I think you may be prescient, Catherine, because our next slide has a quote from Queen Elizabeth, and she said, "Good memories are our second chance at happiness." They're our third and our fourth and our fifth, and they really are what bonds us, isn't it? Shared memories. So thank you. What a great idea. Good. And Sandy Reed, are you with us today?
I am. I don't have any ideas though, sorry.
Well, I just wanted to give you a shout out since it's lovely being able to share this with you as extended family. So best wishes to you and to your kids.
Thank you so much.
And I know they're not kids anymore, are they? I had an opportunity to meet Connor in New York, and how wonderful it was to see this bright and talented young man.
Thank you. He is, yes, they're both great kids.
Wonderful. So thanks for joining us.
I think Tweet is on now.
Okay, Tweet, let's hear from you. Another of our certified Tongue Fu trainers. Tweet.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me okay?
I sure can.
Okay, good, good. Yes, I was at an aviation meeting last night, and we had a question about SpaceX. And we said if we were going to go on SpaceX, what would be the one thing we would do when we arrived? And that was kind of fun because it was a group of pilots and everybody had different ideas.
Wow. You know, Tweet, it's interesting, and you're also a certified Dale Carnegie instructor. You've been involved in that organization for years. And of course, Dale Carnegie said, we can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than we can in 2 years by trying to get people interested in us. And a theme that runs through where we give people these questions to have these conversations, we can make more friends in 20 minutes than we can in 2 years with these questions that get us interested. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that you'd been there, that you think that way, that this had happened to you, that you, so thank you, Tweet, for chiming in. And
yeah, thank you.
You bet. All right, let's talk about this next. How can we do all these? Talk about memories, talk about would you rather, talk about all these. Here are some other questions, and here's what it's based on. I have a good friend named Mary Loverty, who's a Hall of Fame speaker. And Mary said that for 10 years while the kids were growing up, they actually traveled to a lake about 8 hours away where they kept a boat, and they'd spend 2 weeks there for their annual summer vacation. Well, the 8-hour drive going to the lake was lots of fun. Everyone was looking forward to it in good spirits. The 8-hour trip back from the lake, not so much, because everyone was sunburned and tired and bickering and so forth. So she turned bickering into the best game. And by the way, I'm in a mastermind with Mary, and every single time we meet, we play the best game because it is a way to cherry pick of what has happened. It's the best meal, the best laugh, the best new friend, the best lesson learned, the best new skill, you know, the best place we visited, etc. And a lot of times we will forget these things if we don't imprint them. And when we have people gathered together and they're sharing the best, it is so energizing, and it really does remind us that there's a lot right with the world. So here are just some of these best questions. And I suggest when you get together with family, you go around, and the rules are you can come up with a category, then you go first. Then everyone shares. Next person, come up with a category. And it may be the best book that you've read, or it may be, you know, what you learned about yourself this past year. However, once again, it's a catalyzing conversation that creates connectivity. One last thing before we wrap up. is that one of the goals of this is not just to have an end to it. That was wonderful. Bye-bye. No, we want this continuity. We want people saying, this was so much fun. Why wait for 9 months? Why not do this like every 2 months so we stay connected, even if we can't see each other in person? So we stay connected, even though we're in different parts of the country. So we stay connected. And here's how to do it. Please write a box on your notes right there. It's a box, and then divide it into quadrants. The upper left quadrant, put a little number 1. Upper right quadrant, little number 2. Lower left quadrant is a 3, and a lower right quadrant is 4. And I actually suggest, once again, with those little notebooks that you're going to give to people, or that you're going to ask people to have ready, that people draw this box. And now you ask questions. And we're actually, it's time to wrap up right now. So I'm going to keep this short. In box 1, what are you doing in your life that you want to right now? Maybe what you're doing that you want to is you're walking your dog every morning. Maybe what you're doing that you want to is you are hosting these kinds of rising tide, raising all involved conversations for people that would be isolated and lonely and distant unless someone like you took the lead. Maybe what you're doing that you want to is you're finally writing that book that you've been talking about. So what are you doing in your life that you want to? All right, over there in box 2, what are you not doing that you want to? Well, maybe what you're not doing that you want to is you're not starting your own business. Or maybe what you're not doing that you want to is to get back into a hobby. Maybe you used to be a photographer, or you used to cook, fresh meals out of recipes. So what is something you're not doing that you want to? All right, box number 3. What are you doing that you don't want to? Maybe you're spending a lot of time on social media or TV these days and you don't want to. Maybe you're overeating and you don't want to. Maybe you're fighting with someone and you don't want to. Maybe what you're doing that you don't want to is you're working 60 hours a week, or you're spending 8 hours a day in a chair sitting or something. So what are you doing you don't want to? And then over on box right, what are you not doing and you don't want to? And maybe what you're not doing that you don't want to is commuting. Maybe you used to commute an hour each way every day, and that's without traffic and without an accident on the highway. And you're not doing that anymore because you're telecommuting and you don't want to do that anymore. So yes, it's a double negative. However, these are our lessons learned. Now, if people fill out these boxes and share their answers, a lot of times these are the key. These are the answers to our happiness test. It's like, this is what's contributing to our happiness. This is what is compromising our happiness. And if you pick one thing in box 2 that you're not doing that you want to, if you act on one thing in box 2, it is the most direct way to start improving your health and happiness now, not someday. And now, since we talked about continuity, maybe everyone gets out their calendar and they pick a day that they're going to launch it, or a day they're going to finish it, so that when you have this conversation again in 2 months, everyone gets to cheerlead each other, encourage each other, hold each other accountable for bringing more into our life of what we want to do that we're not doing. Paulo Coelho said, one day we're going to wake up and there won't be any time left to do the things we've always wanted to do. I think one of the things that we all want to do is to stay connected with our loved ones, our friends, our family members. And with COVID and everything that's happening this year, the stay at home and the quarantine, these holidays could come and go. And in a way, we're missing an opportunity. And I am so glad that you've taken the lead and stepped up and said, somebody's got to go first. Someone's got to be the example. And hopefully these tips will help you set an example where people really do get to know each other better, get to focus on what's right with their world and not what's just wrong. And I hope that you put something on your calendar where you're going to do this again, so that people have something to look forward to. That's called ikigai. Ikigai is a Japanese word that means a reason to get up in the morning. What's a reason to get up in the morning? I think hosting an event like this is a reason to get up. And then I think putting one on a calendar again and again gives you and the people you care purpose, meaning, momentum, and a reason to get up in the morning. I'm Sam Horn. Let's wrap up officially. In case you need to get back to work or go on to other projects, I'm going to be glad to stay unofficially in case you have other comments or questions or things you'd like to bring up. Once again, mahalo, as they say in Hawaii, and happy holidays to you.